How do you improve as a drummer if you don't have an instructor nearby? So one of the things that you can do is you can reach out to people on social media to schedule a remote lesson. So you could do something over Zoom or Skype or whatever. Another way that you can actually do that is you can actually record yourself and send a tape of you're playing to somebody, and then they can give you like a tape feedback or written feedback. It's actually something that I did with Glenn Crosby for a couple of years, way back in my day, before like Zoom was a thing. Is I would like on a physical tape record myself and then mail that to him, and then he'd send back like a bunch of advice of like things to work on. So like that's something that you can do, but it's so much easier now, and you can just like reach out to people on social media, just DM them and be like, hey, do you teach lessons? Another thing that I actually did is when the band days, like the local band days at the university, they would invite in like a guest instructor, like Paul Rennick or Jeff Queen, are a couple of examples that came to mind. When they were in town for those band days, I would actually reach out to them and be like, hey, can I get like a 2-hour private lesson with you and study with them that way? So you can actually do in-person lesson with somebody who is just visiting your local area. And even though it's not as like consistent as like a Zoom lesson or things like that, it's better than nothing. I learned so much from the couple hours that I spent with Paul Rennick or the couple hours that I spent with Jeff Queen that like really heavily informed my own playing. So you can do that too for in-person lessons. And just as an FYI, I no longer teach privately, so this is not me like promoting my private lessons. I'd rather focus on teaching like a larger population with like free content rather than like only teaching those who can afford lessons. If you cannot afford private lessons, which they can be very expensive, there are tons of free content out there. So for example, I have literally thousands of exercises that can help you and drumming tips. At the link at the top of the screen, it's got 62 chop exercises here. We've got over 1,000 grid variations that you can work on. We've got a bunch of limb independent stuff, over 460 march and bass exercises, bunch of cadences, over 360 technique exercises. So all these exercises can like help your drumming. So for example, if you want to improve your endurance and speed, check out that playlist. If you want to work on your timing, check out that playlist. Like there's a ton of content in here in terms of exercises to work on, but I've also got over a dozen hours of like drumming tips. So in this particular playlist, there's a ton of videos in here that show that have like a bunch of different questions that I've answered in all the different live streams that I've done. So this is stuff that I've paid a lot of money to learn over the decades that I've been drumming, and you can get access to it for free. So go to the tips and lessons section if you want some free content, like how to develop limb independence on a drum kit or how to hold traditional grip. Like these are things that I have learned over the decades, been drumming since 1998. And then even like during school, like getting my bachelor's, master's, PhD, etc. Learned a ton of things in here that I share for free, so you don't have to pay for them. I've had some people who will tag me on social media and will specifically request some feedback. So if you go to like the drumming tips playlist inside of here, if we scroll all the way down to this one, somebody asked me to provide feedback on themselves playing through Flamus, and you can do this anonymously. You don't have to show your face or anything like this. And so I spent a good amount of time, edited down as just under 15 minutes, providing feedback on like, here's what to work on for your left hand technique. Like here's some things to consider for that. Here's something to work on for your right hand technique. Here's some things to work on for improving your flam taps. So this is something that I can do, and this kind of like getting a private lesson without actually having to pay for anything and without it actually being a private lesson. Again, I want to be able to share free content for the masses, for anyone in the world. And so this allows me to give you individual feedback while also still helping out more people this way. So if you like tag me like at Jared O'Leary on YouTube, it should pop up in my mentions, and I should be able to take a look at it. Just make sure you like write in the description or in the comments or something that you give permission for me to talk about this on stream to be able to give you some feedback. And then I will edit it down and I'll put it inside of the drumming tips playlist right here. You can also learn to teach yourself how to get better. You can use a mirror to refine your playing. However, what's even better than using a mirror is to actually record yourself. The problem with practicing in front of a mirror is that you will often be split with your attention. The attention dedicated to trying to play good, and then the attention where you're analyzing your playing in front of the mirror, and that can make it very difficult to actually try and improve. So if you record yourself, you can focus 100% of your attention on your playing, and then you can focus 100% of your attention on the analysis when you go back and review the recording. So for example, you can record yourself and then listen to yourself without actually seeing it. So just like cover your eyes and listen to what it sounds like. And you should listen for a rhythm and not a sticking. If you are not looking at yourself and you're just listening to it and analyzing it, you can specifically listen for those consistencies with the rhythms and making it sound rhythmic rather than like a sticking. Another thing you can do is you can put it on mute and then look for consistencies in your height. So what you're trying to do with these like different like approaches of how you can listen to it is you're trying to isolate out your senses to focus on one thing at a time and really hone in on it. So for the first one, it was like focusing on the listening. For the next one, when you're muting it, you're actually focusing on the heights. So are my accents consistently at one height and are my taps consistently at another height? Or are they switching depending on like what's going on? Are my velocity between my right hand and my left hand the same? Does my left hand move slower than my right hand? These are all things that you can really notice when you put it on mute and you just watch it. Another thing that you can do is you can actually put it on slow motion. So for example, on YouTube, you can click on the gear and then you can click for the speed to make it go as slow as like a quarter speed. If you go super slow, you're able to look at the mechanics of your hand to figure out what exactly is going on when I'm playing like a fast thing. If you speed up your recording of yourself, you can actually see some of the mistakes that you might be making. Like you might be moving your hips a bunch, or you might be moving your shoulders when you're like moving around on the tenors. And you might not notice that if you're like doing just like these subtle movements at normal speed, but then when you watch it at like 2 times speed and you start noticing yourself jiggling like this, then you can really notice like some of those macro motions that might be going on that could be causing some issues with your own playing. But another thing that I would highly recommend doing is when you're actually recording yourself going through something, record yourself playing something with multiple reps. Don't just play it one time and analyze that playing. Play it at least 2 times and listen back to it. What is consistent between the first rep and the second rep, and what is inconsistent between the first rep and the second rep. The way that you approach those different airs is going to be different. So a consistent air is something that you might want to focus on because it's like, oh, well, my accents are consistently too high or my taps are consistently too high. Okay, well, let's focus on lowering those taps. That's a consistent air. And the inconsistent airs might just be a brain fart. You might be thinking about, oh, I'm hungry, or, oh, I can't wait to hang out with my significant other later on today. And your brain is just distracted. And so that is causing the air, and you might not need to actually work on that inconsistent air. How do you get back into drumming after you've taken some kind of a break? As somebody who has taken a break for like when I was working on my doctorate, I was not playing drums nearly as much as I wanted to because I was having to focus on research. Having gone from like practicing all day every day to not practicing at all for an extended period of time and then coming back to it, I felt like I had taken a huge step back and wasn't sure if I'd be able to, quite frankly, just like get back to where I was previously. You can use any of these exercises that are on my website. Like you can start off with the chop exercises. Instead of like playing at your maximum tempo, which may have been like 160 previously or something, just go slow. There's no shame in it. Slow it all the way down to like 40 if you need to, using the timestamps in the description. Just focus on refining your technique and slowly getting your hands remembering things again. Let's say it took you like 5 years to be able to play Blue Devil's 99 Chopping Spree at like 160. It's not going to take you 5 years again to get it back up to that speed. It might only take you about 10% of the time to actually get back to where you were. So if you just start slow with any of these exercises, whether it's chop stuff or grid variations or techniques, exercises or whatever, start slow and just let it gradually speed up. It will make it so you don't blow out your chops or burn out your chops by trying to play as fast as you used to do it. Another thing that I recommend is do a stretch and massage routine. And if you scroll all the way down to the tips and lessons section, I have this video that's called This Hand Routine Saved My Drumming, and it has a very specific stretch and massage routine that I use that I highly recommend you also take a look at.